Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to this Blitz tournament that is about to begin, which frankly I know nothing about and knew very little about until very recently, but it is a very strong event featuring none other than the world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, our dear friend Peter Svidler, Tari, David Antón Guijarro, the rising Spanish star. Then, internet phenomenon, Vidit is here, and the beast, Adhiban. So it's a 6-player, I think, double round robin Blitz tournament. We'll catch up on the details as we go along. Give me a minute, this I should be able to figure out, but it will be good chess, that much I am certain about. So, if you're just as confused as me, I apologize. Also, why is there still an ad for Anish? He's not here, but it should be a fun event, and let's see if we can already spot some of the players waiting eagerly for it to begin. Two of these guys obviously are Norway Chess participants, which starts on October 5th. Tari and Fabiano Caruana. I can see the games are about to begin. We will work tirelessly on getting an even better view of at least some of the players. Here we can see Fabiano, or at least pieces of Fabiano, and Tari. And let the games begin. Fabiano Caruana facing Adhiban. Sorry, this picture looks messy. I'll work on it. But I think this is as good a view as we're going to get. And Fabiano with the white pieces practicing, or so I'm assuming at the very least, for not only Norway Chess, but also the candidates. He's been in quarantine in Stavanger, where Norway Chess will be played soon. I'm sure is thrilled to get some Blitz games in against great competition here. He is facing the beast himself, Adhiban, fantastically creative Indian player, always incredibly dangerous. And as for the game, I'll be honest, I don't know what is going on here. The rook is on h3, which looks somewhat shaky, I would say, but it can return to the game easily. But overall, Adhiban has managed to get rid of his bad bishop here and seems to have a very sound structure. So he's in pretty good shape against the great Fabiano Caruana. Let's get this prettier. I'm not sure why Adhiban is rocking either the chessboard or the cowboy hat, but I'm sure he has great reasons for both choices. And on the chessboard, he is doing extremely well. Can we get him bigger though? I want the whole Adhiban experience. This might be a little blurry, but here he is. So this tournament is a 3-minute blitz tournament where the players get no increment as far as I'm informed. So quickness is of the essence. And Caruana is using that quickness here, also creating some counterplay with his H-pawn. He still has 1 minute 51 on the clock. And he's hanging in there thanks to the strong passer. I've activated the engine bar, as I'm sure you can see, which will give us a rough idea about who's better and why. Currently it says no one's better, it's equal. Let's see what happens. We have other games in full swing, as usual, with Blitz. It's tough to cover all of them. Peter Svidler is facing Tari, who you can see on your upper screen there. That didn't help. But it looks like only 3 players are daring to show their face during this event. Tari, you can see above, he's currently playing against Svidler, Caruana and Adhiban. I'm sure you figured out who is who by now. As for the position, Caruana now has 2 passed pawns, which on paper is probably slightly better than Adhiban's, 2 connected passed pawns I should say, than Adhiban's unconnected passes. But f3, rook takes e3, Adhiban blunders a rook. Was this all planned? Is this a combination? Rook takes d6, king goes away, rook e6, f2, is this brilliant? But rook d1 and rook c1, wow, well played by Caruana. The point is f2, king d3 is a check and white wins. So he gains that crucial tempo. Nicely done. Caruana goes on to win this first game, king d6, king d3, and black is not in time to create any threats. Wow. I can't tell if this was a deep combination by Adhiban, which failed because of the equally deep rook to c1, or if it was an oversight that turned into a close position. The game is over. Caruana has won, and Peter Svidler draws against Tari. Peter, being his solid self here with the black pieces, saying, let's feel this tournament out. I don't know this kid from Norway. I'll play a solid draw. That brings us to the third game. Unfortunately, we don't have these players on camera because they're very camera shy, especially Vidit. But game is still raging. Looks like David Antón is doing well here if he can defend against these rooks, giving lots and lots of checks, but it looks like he can, just running out with his king. So it seems like, wasn't this checkmate, rook h1? Didn't happen, but the black position remains winning. The question is though, will he manage in time? And he does manage in time. Checkmate, Mr. Vidit. So the first round comes to a close. Exciting stuff. And round number 2, I would guess, will kick off without further ado. Here we have Caruana facing the man literally above him, Tari. Those are the 2 participants in Norway chess. Let's see how this plays out. Fabiano Caruana, the world number 2 entry. That much I don't think is spoiling so much in our recent list of the 50 greatest players of all time. Used to be considered a little weaker, although by no means weak, but a little weaker, less stable in Blitz and Rapid. But he's shown, amongst other things, in his recent match in, what was it, the clutch chess against Magnus Carlsen, that was incredibly close, that he has also made great strides in that format. Tournament director Mr. Martinez is telling the players, let the games begin, and we will see. If they follow his orders. Why wouldn't they? Here we are, pawn to c3, pawn to e6. Another Caro-Kann bishop d3, very modern to my eyes, because I was taught this is your good bishop. You don't exchange it for that bishop, but that's clearly an antiquated view. Caruana is all about developing quickly here, getting his pieces out, and then using his space advantage to increase the pressure on the black position. While Tari will try to clamp down on the light squares. Putting a knight on f5, maybe pawn to h4, pawn to g6, bishop to e7. I used to play similar setups with black, but a couple tempi down, usually coming from the modern, like e4, g6. This looks to me like a pretty good version of those things for black. Pawn to c5, knight to f1. And Tari takes on d4, knight takes d4, queen b6. It looks like he's in good shape once again. He's gotten rid of his bad bishop, all his pieces have decent squares. Knight e3, now he can take on d4, then go g6, play that type of structure. I do not think he has anything in particular to worry about here. Could start with pawn to g6 as well, but Tari does go for knight to c5 instead, transposing into this endgame, where currently Caruana is threatening a knight fork, but that will be parried, and it is parried by short castles, bring the king into safety. When the position, I guess, remains roughly equal. Rook to c8, for example, looks like a pretty solid option. I move this, this happens, all right. Still trying to figure out if we can get a better view of the players. That's live nowadays, cutting stuff out from Zoom calls, which are often moving around a little bit. I hope it's okay. Both sides deploying their pieces. Caruana deciding to break the structure before black can improve further. But Tari is first to fight for the c-file. The question is, has he lost a pawn on e6 on the way? Or will his rook on c2 provide sufficient compensation for that pawn that got away? Bishop d4, Caruana saying, I shall keep my pawn, you show me why you're doing well here. And it could be that black is not doing well. It was somewhat unnecessary to part with that pawn, I guess, but it did look very tempting to put his rook on c2. Play active. Let's see if Tari can get play here. King to f7, nice little Zwischenzug, attacking the knight on e6. After rook takes e4, king takes e6, black would be extremely active. So Caruana goes for a funkier move. Knight to g7, trying to exchange the knight, but on a weaker square from black's perspective, where his king would be shut out of the game. King takes g7, rook takes e4, king comes to g6. Oops, I apologize. And the battle does continue. Bishop to c5. Tari still hanging in there, still pawn down, still active pieces. Not clear to me if white is really better here or can convert this. There's always nuisances to deal with. Rook d1 check could be a threat now. g3 or h3 could be unpleasant at any given moment. So it's a tough fight. Tari showing You can play with the greats here, regaining this pawn on e6 now after king f5, after the exchange of rooks, and the position should be equal. Caruana very instructively fixes this pawn on h4 by playing h3, meaning this could be a target for his bishop to attack later on, but it does not look like black should lose this. He has enough counterplay. Can put his bishop on d6, on g3 if the pawn gets attacked. Doesn't look like much. Once again, Caruana showing his class by putting his pawns on light squares, but the position remains fairly drawish. I'm wondering if Caruana will keep trying here, or if he will say, you know what, draw is fine. Let's move on with our lives. And draw is agreed. Well, so we have Vidit defeats Peter Svidler with the black pieces. Big win for Vidit there. And David Antón loses to Adhiban. So let's update or check the standings. We see Caruana playing steady on 1.5 out of 2, while then there's a bunch of players on 1 out of 2, and Peter Svidler in sole last place with just half a point. The action remains fast and furious. Round number 3 about to begin. As usual, we will give preference to the players we can actually see. Some of the others might be streaming themselves, I think. If you click on their little flags on good old Chess24, you can follow the action from their perspective. So in this game, let's have a look at Vidit Caruana and maybe switch to Tari Adhiban if the action is not to our liking, like here, because I haven't made a move yet. While Tari and Adhiban are already at it. Tari has accepted a so-called isolated pawn on d4, and Adhiban is trying to stabilize that d5 square, that blockading square in front of it. But bishop g5 will force some concession either way, either pawn to f6 or knight to take c3, because black cannot maintain this construction he has. So it looks like Tari got a better position out of the opening, at least to me. I'm not sure if anybody's watching this. If there's someone out there and can confirm that stuff is happening in the Chess24 chat, would be much appreciated. Niels Grandelius, are you there? Please let me know. As for the position, Adhiban did take on c3. Adhiban, in case you're wondering, is the gentleman with the hat. And it looks like there are people around. Hi everybody, and Niels Grandelius is with us. Niels, how do you even catch wind of these tournaments that I did not know about till like 18 minutes ago? Niels is well informed, true professional, always following the developments in the chess scene. And of course, he would not miss such an event. So it looks like we're up and running. Thanks for watching, everybody. As for the game, Arjan Tari is in trouble. He had to give this exchange in the corner, and it does not look to me like he got enough compensation. Black now has a rook against this bishop, and the black pieces are all well placed, active. Bishop to e4, pawn to g5, so many options that it seems like Adhiban is firmly in the driver's seat here. Bishop e4 played. Yeah, he's just strong. Not clear how Arjan should deal with such violence. There is no good way. The queen has to go away. Then if it loses contact with this knight on f3, black can just take on f3. This is what happens. Bishop takes f3, g takes f3. Now many ways should lead to pressure. Knight to h4 played. Oof. Adhiban with a demonstration of power in this game thus far. Bishop g3. Knight takes the pawn with check and retreats to g5, opening that f3 square for the queen, which could give a check here now. It's just horribly, horribly unpleasant. Archer Knight is asking, are there prizes for this event? I'm not 100% sure, but the way I understand it is that the winner either gets a signed picture of Mr. Dodgy on a horse or Adhiban's hat. I believe that is the choice. But I could be wrong. So if you have more information, then by all means, let me know. Checkmate. Tari goes down here against Adhiban. Great, great game by Adhiban. And we're switching to Professor Dr. Caruana against the online phenomenon giant YouTuber receiving all the honors. Vidit from India, who's not only a very successful streamer, but also a fantastically strong chess player, as you can see from this position where he is completely winning against Fabiano Caruana. Caruana probably regrets at this point. I'm not sure if he regrets that he did not spend this afternoon on more preparation for Norway chess, but instead on playing this Blitz event and being crushed here by Vidit. His position looks absolutely hopeless. He's a pawn down, pawn and the position. White has the two bishops complete control over the entire board, and even with Caruana's famous tenacity, now he's 2 pawns down, it does not look like there should be any hope to save this game. Quite a statement by Vidit. There are questions who I think will win. The candidates, obviously the guys on +2 have the best chances. Jan Nepomniachtchi, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. MVL had somewhat disappointing for his standards results in online play, which I will use. Oh, what's going on here? As an argument in MVL's favor, in that I think he had these poor results because he's been focusing so hard on the second half of the candidates. Jan Nepomniachtchi, I believe if he's in good shape, he's also an irresistible force. So I find it very, very hard to decide. Fabiano Caruana is only a point behind these two, can of course not be counted out. But if I had to bet on one player, I would currently... I would go with Nepomniachtchi. But it's anybody's guess. I think someone explained to me that MVL has... Was it better tiebreaks? Something was in his favor. But basically I think it will be who comes best adjusted after this long break from classical chess, ready to play. It's sort of a sprint, 7 rounds. And yeah, it's anybody's guess. I'm kind of believing in Nepomniachtchi because he's typically a quick starter and then slows down sometimes during the tournament. Sometimes he falls ill. Sometimes things don't go as planned along the way. Well, with only 7 rounds, I think that could be in his wheelhouse. Of course, anything could still happen. Anish Giri also lurking on 50%, as is Alexander Grishuk. That's 1 win against either of the leaders, and they tie with them. So excitement still very much there, as hopefully also in this 4th round, which has just begun. We keep tracking Dr. Fabi, who once again is in trouble. Come on, Fabi, hang in there. With the white pieces, got in trouble out of the opening against David Anton. here, knight to f4, knight to d3, or just rook to e8 or rook to c8 to stabilize. Black has a more than healthy position. Goes rook to c8, targeting the c3 pawn. This does not look easy for Caruana. Goes back to 50%. Which, if Grishuk draws his remaining 7 games, I think we should make a push. Then it becomes Grishuk's rapping name, 50%. Take it away from the reigning champion. But of course, we're very far from that. Caruana remains worse. White has the space advantage, knight h5. Here comes the cavalry, opting for the f4 square, pawn to f5. It's just a rough position to play. And Caruana has to defend. Goes pawn to f4, allowing a protected pass pawn, as we call it, on e4. But at least he stops this avalanche that was threatening to crush him in the center. Now he counters c4. Is this a problem for David Antón? The timing looks good because now d takes c, knight takes c4. And then all of a sudden you have a discovered attack with the knight. Well, if you can't take c5 is next, and the white pawn formation gains incredible amounts of strength. This is what happened, and now it looks like Caruana turned the tables here. The knight goes to e3, very classical stuff there by Fabiano, blocking the opponent's pass pawn, keeping an eye on both f5 and d5. Now he was targeting the a5 pawn, which Antón defends, but that means he gets distracted from his plans to go for an attack, maybe with g5. And Caruana showing us prophylaxis, having both of his rooks directed against his f5 pawn, just so that black can never play g5. The players are repeating moves here. Is this going to end in a draw by threefold repetition? No. Caruana deviates, goes king h2. Well, Antón's strategy seems to be to move the queen between d7 and e7 as much as possible. Now it's Caruana who got in the break on the king side, got his own pawn to g4, meaning that he can now put quite some pressure on the black position. Antón tries to stabilize by playing g5, but he allows another powerful pawn formation for white now on the king side as well, with this protected pass pawn on f5, which he's now trying to undermine by playing h5. But Caruana is already working on passer number 2 on the c file, wants to go c6 or b6 followed by c6. He goes c6 and Antón blocks the position with b6. Can Caruana break through here? His position looks very nice, but can it be improved? Not obvious to me. He will maneuver his knight maybe to b3 in order to sacrifice on a5. Could that be his plan? Looks like Antón anticipated that. Here comes the knight. Now Antón will defend against knight takes a5 by covering the b6 square. So after takes, pawn to b6 wasn't lethal. Caruana still gets it in though. And there we see the computer jumping around a bit. But now it thinks that the two white passes will decide the game. Tough clash here. Was wildly swinging back and forth. But Caruana comes through in the end. The key moment, I think, being here. We have to pawn to b6 instead of rook c8, and black loses. Antón had the little tactic knight to e7. The point being that if you take, black takes here, this pawn doesn't queen. And if you don't take, all of a sudden c6 is under attack. So after knight e7, Caruana's combination would have backfired pretty badly. But as it was, he goes through and wins this game. Let's switch to Adhiban Svidler, where moves are being repeated, even though white was an exchange up. Adhiban did not see a way through. The game ends in a draw. That leaves us with Tari against Vidit, where, well, white's position is resignable. Maybe he's still thinking about the time, but 42 seconds is plenty here. So Vidit picks up another win in the standings. That means for us that Mr. Vidit is now in the sole lead with 3 points out of 4. Caruana is in second place after that somewhat shaky victory. Wasn't that smooth, I would say, against David Antón. Adhiban third, 2.5 out of 4 as well. Antón on 50% and Svidler and Tari on 1 point out of 4. Good stuff by Mr. Vidit. They're playing a total of 10 games. Well, round number 5 is about to begin. And let's watch, we gotta watch our boy Peter Svidler against Caruana. Peter on 1 out of 4, rough beginning. But we all know, if Peter feels challenged, he becomes even more dangerous. And let's see what he can do here against Professor Dr. Fabi. Bishop to b6. Pawn to c5 looks tempting, but instead pawn to d3 is played. Pawn to d5, I guess Caruana still knows what he's doing here. Now, Peter has been playing quite a few of these quiet, slower English setups recently. Just looking to get a position, and it looks like he might have gotten a good position. Pawn to d4, knight to a4. This pawn on d4 now feels a bit shaky. Knight takes b6, followed by capturing it as a threat. So black probably has to go knight c6. And Peter can decide if he wants to cash in by taking here and here and here, or if he wants to increase the pressure against d4, for example, with a move like rook d1. He chooses door number 3, goes pawn to a3, still keeping a very healthy structure. Rook e8, I'm assuming rook d1. I'm assuming wrong. Bishop g5, Svidler exchanges this bishop, which wasn't doing so much, for this knight on f6. Allowing Caruana to get his pieces out though. Now bishop f5 can come with tempo, and looks like the worst is over for Fabiano Caruana. Let's see where the queen goes back, but now Fabi's very well centralized. Rook a d8, d3 is there, knight e5, knight c4. So many options, so little time. Knight c1, he's trying to block the pawn by putting this knight on d3. But it's black to move, and Caruana could maybe try to break the position with pawn to d3. Goes bishop e4, exchanges here. That allows Svidler to stabilize. And now I would say the position is roughly equal. This pawn is weak, black has some space, but black also has a bunch of weak pawns. So, looks roughly equal to me, as you can see. The computer slightly prefers black. Rook to c2 plate. Queen to f5. The queen is looking for greener pastures, maybe also preparing h5, h4. Yeah, maybe. Not too surprisingly, I guess. I was wrong. The computer was right. Black is just more comfortable here, because it's not clear what white can move. Knight b4. I guess that could get taken or ignored by knight to e5, the knight coming closer to the king side. And yes, I completed that sentence after the knight had already gone to e5. Knight d3, offering a move repetition. Svidler wants to get rid of this active knight, understandably. Let's see if he achieves that goal, either the move repetition or the knight exchange. Knight to g4 plate. So Caruana decides f6. It's also a good enough square for the knight, at least keeping more pieces on the board, which usually is a good strategy if you have a space advantage. You don't want to exchange too much, because then the defender's pieces typically find enough room in their own camp, while if you leave some more on the board, it can be a little trickier. Not sure all of this applies here, because the knight on d3 is very well placed. But it does look like Caruana is still in the driver's seat. Peter's trying to activate his queen. This looks like a very lone queen attack. The one queen against the entire black army reminds me a bit of the movie The Villainous, except sorry, this queen's body count is way lower so far. Caruana is going for g5, trying to make more things happen on the king side, but Svidler, world-class player that he is coordinating his pieces pretty well, hanging in there. Can black take on e2 now? Yeah. Ah, that was his point. He wants to exchange queens and then attack this d-pawn. It looks like Peter has survived the worst. He's a pawn down, but his rook is very active now. No, he's not even a pawn down anymore. King to e3, potentially rook can come over here or over here, not blundering the rook. That's probably a good idea. Now it's white who's better. Oof. So much drama. Yeah, Svidler has completely turned this around, is now winning. Let's see if he manages. King f3, somewhat strange decision, I would say. Going for the rook ending. Maybe he's sure it's winning. But after rook b3, it's not so obvious because this pawn cannot be kept. Yeah, I think he could have opted for more there. Because now, Svidler, being the eternal gentleman, he's not even continuing to play pawn up here. He's saying, you know what? This is a theoretical draw. I will not question your knowledge of trivial rook endgames, Mr. Caruana. Let us shake hands. And we're switching to Vidit against Adhiban, where Vidit is about to do it again. Queen is d-pawn. White completely winning. Vidit dominating this game and this event. So far, he now has 4 out of 5, if my count is correct. How did this happen? So, good old Queen's Indian. Vidit, of course, big theoretician, going for one of the critical main lines. And looks like he inflicts damage early here. Black has the knight on the rim, this weak pawn. And white is just seriously better. And he never lets go. Takes the pawn. Clean chess by Vidit, crushing his compatriot. That leaves us with David Antón against Tari, where a quick piece count gives me the impression that white has more of these pieces, which is usually a good thing. So it looks like black ran out of time. So Antón wins that one. And we're going straight, without further ado, into round number 6. Where we have the gentleman with the hat against Adhiban. Just kidding. Caruana against Adhiban. Caruana with the black pieces. Let's see how this goes. Pawn to c4. Adhiban just a heavy defeat against Vidit. Can he recover from that in the very next game against the world number 2? So far, Tari on 1 out of 5, getting some rough welcoming to the Norway chess tournament, where he will be the lowest rated participant in the company of Caruana, of Magnus Carlsen, of Levan Aronian, Alireza Firouzja, and Jan Krzysztof Duda. We'll see how Tari fares there. We should not judge his chances by his results in this Blitz tournament. But of course, he is the underdog that will have a bit of a target on his back. Also, I take no responsibility for the fact that we can often see only Caruana's forehead. It's his webcam. Pawn to g4. Adhiban, living up to his nickname, the Beast, grabbing space on the king side. A bit in the style of Fischer, who did this after somewhat more preparation in hedgehog structures. Fighting against f5. And let's see if he gets away with this. Caruana recently with a heavy loss in the German Bundesliga finals against Erwin Lamy, who also went after him straight from the get-go. Attacking him with g4. I don't think that traumatized him, but we've seen g4 ideas recently work against the world number 2. Rook to c8. Caruana is trying to open the position on the queen side with pawn to c6. Saying, you know what, you want to attack on the king side? I'll keep you busy on the other side. And good luck checkmating me with the c-file open. Which looks like sound raising to me. And now he's going for an exchange sacrifice. C takes b5. Leaving this rook on f8. On prise. But Adhiban is saying, no thank you, sir. I do not want your rook. Still, black's position looks excellent to me now. Knight is ready to jump to h4. He has passed 8 pawn. He has potential targets on the queen side on the c-file. So, Dr. Fabi giving his diagnosis here. Shashak Shenoy wants to know, who is Jan, guys? You come to my house. No. Hi, my name is Jan Gustafsson. I am a German chess grandmaster who is no longer very active. But I have been involved with Chess24, the website. That is, I guess, organizing, hosting this event, working together with Norway Chess for a long time now. And I have done some commentary on some chess tournaments. As for the game, Caruana has opened the f-file and put his knight close to the white king on h4. It looks very, very dangerous for Adhiban, who of course is an amazing tactician, amazing attacker. But here he has to defend, and it's gonna be tough if Caruana zooms in on his king. Things will get very, very tricky. The queen could come to h6 and knight check on f3. Caruana goes for bishop f3, allowing knight g5. Hang on, did he miss this? If we could see his full face, we would maybe see if there's a tiny little head shake. This looks like he gives Adhiban a chance, maybe, no? Not sure if it's so bad, but queen d6, there's some queen b3 check, some knight f7 check all of a sudden looming. This has not gone according to plan. He's missed knight g5. And the beast is showing his claws. Queen b3 happens. And this knight f7, the famous smothered mate, which I'm sure you guys have heard of. This is just a demonstration line. Is a big problem for Caruana now. So after knight f7, he had to take the knight, but then this rook gets taken with check. Adhiban has flipped it. Flipped it for real. Who would have thought? All of a sudden, white is a rook up, has managed to defend his king, keep it safe, and is working on getting queen number 2. Other people are thinking about their second kid. Adhiban is thinking about his second queen already. And this looks decisive. Knight h2 check, king g1, knight f3 is the last chance you have to take. But the good news for Adhiban with his former 2 queens is he can give one up and remain a rook up. Caruana keeps fighting, incredibly resilient. But a rook is a rook, as we say in the business. Queen f5 check, forcing the exchange of queens. That should be it. a3, rook b6, a2, rook a6, stopping the a-pawn. Now it's about the time. Has Adhiban spent too much time converting his advantage? He has to pre-move. Let's see who's quicker. Looks like we'll get a draw if he manages to capture the pawn in time. It is a draw, Adhiban, from a completely winning position. Does not manage in time. Lot of drama. This will be an excellent position for my upcoming book on positions where one side has an extra rook, and we can debate the time factor with extra rooks, which comes to the forefront here. Knight takes h5. Probably not ideal, but he was very low on time, had to pre-move. Did not expect this pawn to get defended. What a game. Peter Svidler, in the meantime, wins his game against Tari by expertly spotting, even if we both get a queen, I will checkmate you. Which is somewhat unfair. Black queens first, but then white queens with checkmate, which you do not see all that often. And it looks like the invincible Vidit loses a game to Niño Antón, as we call the Spanish star, who used another queening combination here. Queen takes f7. And here he would get a new queen. I would like to point out that instead he could also have done this maybe, and now checkmate. But Antón is not about giving mate. He's all about the ladies. There's no breaks here. Round number 7 already in full effect. Tari, the gentleman, you can see on your upper whatever, right? Versus Fabiano Caruana. Sharp Italian position. Caruana. Not pulling any punches, going knight h5, trying to capture that bishop because of the pin. All kinds of drama here, but Caruana with a good position after this little intermezzo. Knight takes e5, typical theme, freeing the queen to attack this knight, but d3 was also loose, so it was just a pawn exchange, after which Caruana stabilizes. The knight went to the queen side, could also have gone to f4 maybe. Now Tari is trying to spice it up by going pawn to e5, knight to f3, attacking the pawn on e5, threatening to win the white queen. But there is a problem. Let's see if Caruana can calculate his way home here. Goes queen to g6. That should leave him in trouble, because now takes... he could have taken here and then with the knight and maybe put the knight on c6. But also bishop takes. There's a pawn up for grabs here. Things are far from easy for the world number 2. Maybe has some counterplay now. Against this pawn. Maybe against this pawn. Still in business, Dr. Fabi. Goes bishop b1. Tari goes bishop b1 check. Bishop f5. Could be a move developing a piece, or just bring the king back. He goes bishop f5. Bishop d6, trying to maybe eliminate a bunch of pieces. Attacking the rook, potentially trying to take here. But no, Tari goes for the attack with knight to c6. Hoping for bishop b6, pawn to a5. Which means Caruana might have to go on the counter-attack. Rook e2. Try to eat as much on Tari's second rank as he can. Sort of an all-you-can-eat pawns buffet None of this happens. Knight b3 played. Rook b1. Why doesn't he take the bishop? Take the bishop. Leave the cannoli. Bishop takes f2 check. The bishop stays in business. And we have another turnaround. Black is better. Knight d2. Rook e2. All these pieces can come after the king. Knight e4 played. Intending a pawn offensive on this side. Knight e7, king f7. Still quite some swings in these games. These are casual 3-minute games. There's nothing at stake except for maybe, and even that I'm not 100% sure about, a picture of Mr. Dodgy on a horse or Adhiban's hat. That we will see. Pawn to g4. Pawn to h5, rook d7. Did Caruana's king get trapped in a mating net? What has he done now? Rook g7 checkmate is a big threat. And rook g8, knight e7, he loses the exchange and gets a lost position. Both sides only 20-something seconds. But it looks like this plan is pretty effective. Knight f6, maybe bishop e5 first was even more precise. The white position remains winning, but can he make it in time? Knight d2. Nice trick if the bishop would have gotten taken. But it was the knight that bites the dust. And Tari wins his game against the world number 2. Not sure how much we can read into that either. But must feel nice. Must feel nice. David Antón against Adhiban is in trouble. Antón with the white pieces. His pawn on c3 went down without much of a fight. So he's now pawn down. I'm not sure how much he has to show for it. I'm also not sure I counted the pawns right. But I like to think so. Pawn to h3, trying to stop queen to g4, but Adhiban, always quick with the tactic, sacrifices bishop. After it gets captured, he regains the piece with pawn to e4 with a double attack on d3 and f3. Antón ignores that, but allows his black pawn to reach the f3 square, which looks pretty dangerous. Imagine a queen coming here. David Antón, the very, very strong Spanish Blitz player, in trouble here against Adhiban. Bishop e4, Antón trying to get rid of that pawn. But is it in time? Knight f6, pawn to d5. Black is still, let's count, 2 pawns up, has a very stable position. And more time on the clock, also important. This should end badly for David Antón. Queen e2, knight e4, Adhiban going only forward. King g2, knight c3, here come more pieces. The knight headed for greener pastures. Pawn to d4, I guess could get taken and he would have to evaluate if you win that or not. But the knight can also just keep jumping around. We'll see. Adhiban taking a moment here. He was planning d4, but then noticed knight takes d4 is my best guess. And he has spotted. He can go knight to e2. Rook d1. And now let's see. Knight d4. Or knight to c3 back. Allowing a repetition. He won't be happy repeating moves. He goes knight b5, but has to part with a big, big pawn on d5. And is no longer better. Could even argue he's slightly worse now with his rotten structure. And king g7, knight f5, wow, missed. Oof, both sides low on time. But yeah, quite some misses in these games. Even players as great as the ones we have here in 3-0 Blitz games, things can happen. Both sides down to the last seconds. The position, I guess, should be equal or whatever. But doesn't matter. Will all the pawns disappear in time? Because this pawn, you know, can stay alive quite a bit. Knight g4, f5. Now objectively black might be winning. And king g4. This is this famous position where whoever is to move loses. Of course, if black can make it in time. Bad pre-moving strategy here by Adhiban. He should throw in a check, not allowing David Antón to pre-move. And in the end, it's a draw because Adhiban runs out of time. Another big battle. Let's have a look at the standings while round number 8 is about to begin. David Antón has caught up with Vidit, both on 4.5 out of 7, or +2, as we say in the business. Fabiano Caruana on a solid 50%, as is Adhiban. Peter Svidler -1, and Tari, after a rough start, 2 out of 7. In last place, but quite some points on the scoreboard, putting some respect on his name. Let's have a look at our top clash. Vidit with black against Caruana with white. The Berlin, the most solid opening known to man, employed by Vidit. Caruana, of course, well prepared against anything, going for some subtle stuff here with knight a5, trying to freeze the black queen side, but queen e8 preparing b6 makes sure that knight does not stick around. And now Vidit should have solved his problems. The knight can come here. He can try to open the queen side with b5. Yeah, he goes b5. Looks like black is okay. Caruana, hypermodern, pushes his pawn all the way to h5, trying to provoke h6, after which he could bring a knight here. And the knight comes here, even without that invitation. King h8, Vidit trying to safeguard his king, wants to meet h6 with g6, of course. Now he wants to go knight to d4 to exchange this powerful knight on f5, and then to recapture with the bishop. Bishop to c3, pawn to f6. Artificial castling. The rook should stay on h1, but Caruana still wants to safeguard his king, so puts it on g2 by hand. King f1, king g2. Yeah, the position, I guess, remains roughly equal. Easier to play for white because of his powerful knight. But Vidit not slowing down, just pushing on the queen side. Saying, show me what you got, Mr. Fabi. Mr. Dodgy is saying Peter reckons he can finish in the top half. Could still happen. Peter on -1 if he wins this game. He's right there at 50%. What's going on here? Both sides are doing mean things to their bishops. This one has to stay in the corner, which would never happen to Baby. And Vidit is blocking his bishop with his pawn to c5, but he was trying to stop pawn to d4. Vidit keeps running on the queen side, saying, I'm not afraid. You do something. I will just push my b-pawn. And so far, Caruana has not found a way to counterfeit that plan. Is that a word? Rook b1, trying to fight against this pawn before it comes even closer. But can it really be stopped? This pawn to me feels like a T1000. It will just keep coming and coming. It won't be afraid to change lanes just to reach his ultimate goal. Knight takes g7, is that an option at some point? Not saying it's great, but at least, you know, throw a little spanner in the works. Nope, Caruana goes for the defensive option, queen e2, queen c2. But that means he abandons all counterplay against the black king. And should now be in real big trouble. Pawn to g6, chasing the horsey. This looks rough for Mr. Fabiano. Vidit's still in great shape here. But time is ticking. And he has only 50 seconds left. And just as I complete the sentence, he's down to 39 seconds. You should make a move at some point, Dr. Vidit. This is Blitz. I can't believe he's thinking for half a minute here. So maybe the move didn't come through. Or it did come through and he just decided knight c5, you know that. That's worth investing more than half my remaining time. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. I wonder if it will pay off for him. His position remains pretty good. Knight e1 check, knight f3. But now he does no longer have the time on his side. Queen c2. Fabi, one of the most tenacious defenders in the business. The question is, how dedicated is someone like Caruana to the noble cause of flagging in games of, some would say, limited sporting relevance. I'm of course not one of these people, but I'm not sure if he will get his hands dirty here. In general, I think it's a difference character-wise to some extent between Caruana and Carlsen, that Carlsen will want to win at everything all the time, while here Caruana, I'm sure he wants to win, but I don't think he would go out of his way to, let's say, flag in a drawn position. Or, yeah, to practice his mouse skills in order to survive such a potential flagging battle here against Vidit. I could be off on those things, but that's my read on the situation. He's pre-moved 18,000 moves, but in the end, it's too slow against a maestro of the pre-move like Vidit. Caruana, in the end, succumbs. What happened in the other games? This looks good for Tari, who probably won this, and Antón lost. So, big point for Vidit, who moves a point clear of David Antón, and I'm assuming everybody else. There's gonna be, wow, first of all, there's all kinds of movement on the Zoom call. We saw a bit of Vidit there, showing his face. There's gonna be a 2-minute break. I will use that to enter a quiet place. I'll be right there. Thank you so much for watching this little Blitz tournament. Here we go again, round number 9. Out of 10, is about to begin. This, or I should specify, has just begun. The action got fast and furious. Vidit is a point ahead of the pack going into the final 2 rounds. So the tournament is his for the taking. So let's have a look at his game. He's playing against Tari with the white pieces. And is he already winning? Has Vidit once again used that theoretical prowess of his to trap this bishop? It's now pawn to f4, picks up a piece as far as I can tell. And yeah, Vidit on his way to maybe wrap up tournament victory here. Why isn't he playing f4? What are you thinking about, Mr. Vidit? Take the piece. He has taken the piece. Just as I did in the break. Bishop to e3. Ah, that's what he was calculating. Bishop takes h4 check. He has bishop f2 and everything under control. Good job by you. This looks hopeless for Arjan. He probably is. I don't even know. I don't see a way to keep fighting, frankly. He will just lose a piece for just a pawn. That's not enough. Take on c8, take on e5. Then bring the pieces in. Vidit cruising. Can I make myself bigger, by the way? No. That we're almost done with the event. I feel I should tower over the participants. Or under. Yeah, this is Resign's piece down. No compensation in sight. So I'm assuming Vidit will get the job done here easily. He still has 2 minutes. And we can switch to the battle of Mr. Caruana, who's just shaking his head there against David Antón. And it looks like Caruana maybe missed rook takes h8 and he's not winning the queen because he has to recapture, and after rook h8 f6 wins. So Antón wins this game. Caruana probably still in training mode, not so much in blitz mode, goes down. Which means even if Vidit wins, he's still not mathematically first, because he could still lose the last round. And if Antón won again, they'd stay tied. Drama, baby. Peter Svidler against Adhiban. Svidler sacrificed a piece, but he has some active pieces around the black king. Probably active enough to survive. But let's have a look if the miracle does happen in this game. Nah, there are no miracles here. There is just when you want to press the resign button, because at this level an extra piece is quite a lot to work with. Yeah, this is it. Pawn to g3 or whatever move makes you happy. King to e4, anything. 94, rook g1, breaking this sort of pin. It's all over. There's nothing you can do about it. Piece is a piece. Tari keeps fighting. And we've seen some turnarounds in these games, but I do not think that's what's going to happen in this one. Even though he's regained a pawn there. The problem is he's still a pawn and a clear piece down, and of course the more material gets exchanged, the fewer swindles are there to be found in the position. So Tari has seen enough. Vidit scores another victory, but with Antón also winning, it ain't over just yet. here we see Vidit cruising 6.5 out of 9. Pursued by David Antón and Peter Svidler. Steady, steady, steady on 50%. Caruana not having his best tournament ever, or I would guess at least this ranks below St. Louis 2014 in the Sinquefield Cup in his personal rankings, where he started with 7 out of 7 against the world's best players. I could be wrong, but that's my read on the situation. And Arjan in last place, but only half a point behind Caruana. So we have to do it conference style. If Vidit draws his game, he is the tournament winner. If he wins, obviously the same. If he loses, Antón can still catch him, should Antón defeat Arjan Tari. The excitement. I can't wait anymore. Seems to be an issue for Caruana, who's not sure if the round has started. It looks like he's played 1e4. And we'll focus on the other games while that gets resolved. Adhiban with white has to win here against Vidit to give Antón a chance to catch up, should Vidit not lose. He wins the event and the possibility of either getting Adhiban's hat, I'm not sure if that's really in the prize fund, or a picture of Mr. Daughtry optionally on a horse. Stakes are high. Let's see if Adhiban tries to mobilize his G-pawn yet again. ADVD, the two Indian participants in this prestigious October Blitz, who will have the last laugh. So far, solid play by both sides. And let's see if Adhiban plays it classically with bishop e2 long castles, or if Goran the G-pawn enters the race again. Speaking of Goran, best wishes to Goran Dragic. I hope his injury wasn't serious and he will come back strong. Knight to c5, allowing openings of the center like d4 or knight takes e5. Adhiban plays rook c1, keeping his options open. Let's see how Vidit reacts. Not so easy to make a move with black now. And yeah, he realized knight c5 maybe wasn't the greatest idea and returns to d7 because he was standing in all kinds of knight takes e5, d4 things. Knight d7 looks a bit passive, but at least attacks this pawn, which Adhiban is not shy parting with, but it gives black a passed a pawn. So he should take. There are a lot of questions about Anish Giri's schedule. Please inform us. Where's Anish? As for this game, Vidit with the passer, Adhiban with the greater central control, which I guess makes the situation roughly balanced. But in Blitz, it's always nice to have a passer, because the plan is easier. You push it. Push it good. Rook to d8. He's not pushing it. But now black can exchange queens and then run with the pawn, which at least should put him out of danger, I was going to say, although this pawn is under attack. And Vidit, very accurate, plays rook c8. Now knight takes b7, can be met with knight c3. That's a very nice little defensive move. A petite combinaison, as we call it. And Adhiban falls for it. Knight takes b7, knight c3 is losing material. Rook e1, there's knight takes e2. This rook is hanging, so he had to take. But now the exchange is gone. And with only one rook left, this a-pawn will have a say sooner rather than later. Here comes the a-pawn again. The plan is easy. a2, rook c2, rook b2, rook b1, queen it. And victory is so near for Vidit. Oh, I'm sure. Tired jokes like Veni, Vidit, Vici have been made plenty of times, but that won't stop me. Vidit didn't do it again yet, but he is about to. Rook f3 followed by rook d1 check, for example, looks like a pretty good tactic to me here. Didn't happen, but his position remains winning. Rook e1 and Antón, his last days as a peasant. I don't mean David Antón, I mean Antón, the a2 pawn. Before he can choose his new life as a butterfly, a queen, a knight, a bishop, or a rook. But who wants to be a rook? I would choose butterfly, but queen is also a very valid option here. I guess AD has seen enough and is calling it a game. If that were the case, Vidit would win this very event. David Antón not exactly winning in this position either, but it does not matter given Vidit's victory. He cannot catch him. So congratulations to Mr. Vidit Caruana. Has left the building, it looks like. So that leaves us with these two gentlemen, Tari, trying to level the game against David Antón. Peter Svidler drew solid 50% for Peter, and I assume this game is over as well, white winning. So let's have a look at the final standings. We see Vidit crushing the event, 7.5 out of 10. David Antón in second place.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot for the game. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity. Good. Congratulations to Vidit. Really wonderful. I won, yeah? Okay, nice. Yeah, I was not following standings afterwards.
Let's see if we can check in with the players. If anybody's still there.
He won with Vidit. Every game. He won every game.
Oh, okay, yes, that's true, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Suddenly I had this 3 losses in a row for no reason. So after that, yeah, it was horrible. It started with Tari, and then I lost with Svidler, and then finally it's with it also, apart from that, I think it was. No way.
I'm now even sadder.
This ad is very important to me.
I'm now even sadder that I didn't win if that was the case. That is a gorgeous hat I wanted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
very,
it's
very
too
sad.
expensive. Yeah, it's too expensive. Yeah, I don't know. He has been ignoring everyone from the start. I mean, even me. Yeah, like I even gave a point. So I mean, what more can a guy do?
Can you guys hear me, by the way, dear viewers? Because I'm muted myself, so there's no echo. I'm not sure, but I think
Yeah.
as long as you can hear Adhiban, you didn't miss
you
very
were
much.
yours. Okay, sorry.
Peter, are you still there?
Yep.
What are you up to these days?
Yep.
Long time no talk.
Yeah,
But we haven't spoken in a while. I do the usual video gaming.
Are you playing Among Us, Fall Guys? Are you like going with the times?
I will eventually start playing Among Us, but so far I've
One
been
Among
very
Us session
downside.
was tough.
Have you played any?
Oh, Peter, you will be awesome in this game. Yeah.
Well, as soon as I learn how to play, I expect to at least have some. I don't know about being awesome, but I expect to have some fun. But so far, I've been worried about.
I'm not
jumping
sure if
into
it's
those
your
waters.
game, because you have to lie a
I
lot.
know a guy.
Yes.
Lying. Yeah, that's why I'm very bad at this game. But also I know a guy who desperately want to get you to play Among Us. Among Us. Yes. And so, what are you playing right now then? Which video game are you into right now?
For you know the usual. I play a ton of Battlegrounds.
Hearthstone, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very faithful to.
Hearthstone is the one with the cards?
Yeah, but
Yes, it's the one you inexplicably decided to watch for like half an hour once, and my heart is still, fluttering wildly in my.
I'll be back.
yeah, but Peter, one thing has always been bothering me. Okay, normal times it's okay, like you play this games, but you said you were also playing it during World Cup. Yeah, I mean, this was very difficult for me to understand.
Well, let me tell you a story of how I picked up that game.
Okay.
It was during the Olympiad in 2014, and one large reason for it was that Jan Nepomniachtchi was playing it basically every waking minute. He would take his iPad